Hi everyone, this is Daniel Gregg speaking, and I'm making a video for you again today. The topic is going to be showing the astronomical foundations of the dates for the Jubilee I gave you. I think I have a more precise title for this. Let me see. Astronomical Tablets confirm the Jubilee. Okay, so a little sensational title to there for you. I have lots of stuff to talk about and not enough time to talk about it. Probably the reason I didn't make a video so quickly as the last times is because I'm trying to work through how to explain this subject in simpler terms while covering the necessary material, because I don't want to confuse people with too much complexity at once. Alrighty, so the date today, this is the third day of the week in the year 6162, and it's the fifth day of the month of Elul. I checked my computed calendar for that, and I also checked the actual observations on the internet for the new moon, and the new moon was seen on Thursday evening, August 17th, 2023. And so that establishes the new moon for the 6th month of the Hebrew calendar year. And I checked out the calculations for the next month also. And the month of Elul this year will be 30 days due to the timing of the new moon. We know from calculations for certain when the fall feast days will be now, because the month of Elul is going to have 30 days for sure. All right, and of course these items are determined by the movements of the sun and moon, and so I'm going to talk about astronomy in relation to biblical chronology today. All righty, so in the last video we discussed three texts to establish the Jubilee. These were 1 Samuel chapter 13, 1 through 3, 1 Kings, I believe, let me check here, I get my ones and twos mixed up, 2 Kings 19:29, and Nehemiah 1:1. All right, and associated with these texts we had foundational dates of 445 BC, or 446 to 445 BC. For the Nehemiah text, we had 593 BC. I built up for the 5th year of Jehoiakim's exile, and we built up the chronology from there to find the date for Saul's Jubilee, and I used archaeological findings and scholars to show that Samaria fell in 720 BC, and then worked out the Jubilee for 2 Kings 19:29 from there. So now I'm going to show the astronomical basis of these texts. Okay, so first some general remarks on the three dates that I have based everything on here. The Nehemiah date I based on for the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar in 446 BC is accepted by scholars pretty much universally. And the 5th year of Jehoiakim's exile, 593 BC, is also pretty much universally accepted by scholars. The 720 date for BC date for the fall of Samaria, there's some debate among scholars about this date, but within the range of accepted dates that the debate ranges over, it still results in the same Jubilee answer. So I settled on 720 BC for that date, and our astronomical discussion today will be in relation to that date. And you will maybe get some hint as to why scholars prefer that date. Okay, so our three dates are what I would call the accepted dates among scholarship. Okay, and I'm going to show you the astronomy and the astronomical reasons why they are the accepted dates. That's my chai tea. a very rainy day today. Cool day toward the end of August. So the island is starting to cool off. Alrighty. Okay. So we're going to start, I'm going to start with the 720 BC date and show you how the astronomy links up from that date to our Jubilee in the 16th year of Hezekiah, which would be 710 Tishri to 709 Tishri. Okay, so we already knew that the sabbatical year was 711 Tishri to 710 Tishri. Okay, that would have been the 15th year of Hezekiah, and the 14th year of Hezekiah would be 712 Tishri to 711 Tishri. Alrighty, so the Jubilee is just slotted in past that sabbatical year that we figured out from Daniel 9 in the past videos here. Alright, so we're going to back up to the 6th year of Hezekiah when the fall of Samaria was in 720 BC, and we're going to link that up with some astronomical dates from the 720 BC and 721 BC, okay, and also the annals of Sargon. So I'm going to introduce you to an ancient scholar here named Claudius Ptolemy. And Claudius Ptolemy was responsible for the Ptolemaic system of astronomy that prevailed until Copernicus came along and overthrew it. Okay, so we're not, the errors that Ptolemy made here, it's not really important. It's only important in the respect that Ptolemy, who lived in the 2nd century AD, would not have been able to use this system to accurately calculate anything 8 centuries before. He was a resident of Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt, and he had access to the great library of Alexandria before it was destroyed. It was standing during his entire lifetime. This library was the largest library in the world, and it had some say upwards or more than 40,000 scrolls in the library from various scholars of the time. And included in that was a lot of knowledge of ancient Babylonia and ancient Greek knowledge and Babylonian astronomy and Persian astronomy and knowledge that was lost and has been passed down to us through the writings of Claudius Ptolemy, who must have finished his work by AD 141, since the last observation recorded in his work, which is called the Almagest, is preserved from that date. The Almagest was written in Koine Greek and then subsequently translated into Arabic and Latin and finally into English, in which scholars can have access to it. I have been unable to determine at this time how old the oldest Greek manuscripts of the Almagest are, but I have seen some of the Greek manuscripts from this, and those Greek manuscripts are online. All right, so what do I have here? So Ptolemy's work is the most celebrated astronomical work of the ancient world, and in fact was the most celebrated astronomical work of all time until the time of the Reformation, or the 15th and 16th centuries. Okay. Was written in Koine Greek in the 2nd century AD. Okay, so Claudius Ptolemy copied ancient Babylonian eclipses down into his work as illustrations of his work, and he linked this up with the Babylonian chronology also. So he copied down 3 eclipses from the 1st and 2nd years of Merodach Baladan, the king of Babylon. All right. The first eclipse took place on March 19, 721 BC, in the 1st year of Marduk Baladan. who this king is mentioned in 2 Kings 20:12 and Isaiah 39:1. Okay, the other two eclipses took place in the second year of the same king, according to Egyptian reckoning. In the Almagest, these years were 721 capital T / 720 capital T. I used the capital T to represent the first day of the Egyptian year on the perpetual Egyptian calendar, which is called Thoth 1 or Thot 1, okay, for the capital T. At this time, that year, that date was near February 20, okay, because the perpetual Egyptian calendar was used, okay. T is for Thot 1. I used a lowercase t for Tishri 1. All right. So if you want to look these up in the Almagest in an English translation, then you need to see Toomer's translation. That's spelled Toomer on page 191. That's also online. That's Toomer's translation of the Almagest. All right. So what do we have here? Of course, I mentioned that it's well known that Ptolemy's theories of celestial motion were insufficient to predict the time of the new moons or any eclipses 8 centuries prior to his date. And in fact, attempts to predict, second century attempts to predict when the Passover was in the first century even went askew among Christian chronographers trying to calculate a Paschal canon in order to find out what possible dates Yeshua could be crucified and resurrected on. All right, so even those went off. I think Hippolytus. Okay, there was a Paschal table that archaeologists found of Hippolytus. I think it was carved into a chair somewhere, if I remember right. All right. Okay. So, first and second years, we have 2 eclipses. One eclipse was on, let's see, the first of the eclipses. This was on, March 19, 721 BC. All right, so you can set your coordinates for Babylon and Stellarium. You can search around March 19 and you will find a total eclipse there, okay? And this is the eclipse that Ptolemy is referring to in his work. Okay, so there's another source called the Babylonian Chronicle, and this was discovered in the cuneiform tablets that archaeologists have dug up in Mesopotamia in the 19th century. And the Babylonian Chronicle tells us that when Shalmaneser died, Sargon became the king of Assyria, but the king of Assyria lost control of Babylon, and Merodach Baladan became the king of Babylon at that time for 12 years. Okay, so that the first year of Sargon and the first year of Merodach Baladan are the same, and the second year of Sargon and the second year of Merodach Baladan are also the same year. Okay, so this is important because our other little connecting piece of evidence comes from the Annals of Sargon. And in the Annals of Sargon, Sargon tells us that in his second year is when he took Samaria. Okay, in his first year of his reign, he was dealing with the upset in Babylon because Assyria had lost control of that, and also what would be called internal distress and revolts, and he was consolidating his power. And there's also some question as to whether he's a legitimate successor of Shalmaneser. The best theories say that he was a usurper and he possibly even killed the former king. Okay, but the important point here is that the ascendancy of Merodach Baladan in Babylon and the ascendancy of Sargon in Assyria happened at the same time and that their regnal years are parallel. So that when Sargon says he took Samaria in his second year, that's the same as the second year of Baladan. And now we can go over to the Almagest, and we see that there are 2 eclipses for this year, 720 BC, and 1 eclipse in the first year of Merodach Baladan for the year before that. And this is important because it nails down the dates of those 2 years apart from, completely apart from any long chain of historical reasoning or reconstruction of the time. The eclipses were given in sufficient detail. A total eclipse was the first one, and then the next 2 eclipses were partial eclipses. So Ptolemy gives their approximate time of day, their approximate duration, and their approximate location in the heavens when he gives his details. And these are sufficient to uniquely identify the correct 2 years within any range of years that would have been considered reasonably debatable before that. All right, so according to Scripture, so we now go over to Scripture, the second year of Merodach Baladan, when Sargon said that Samaria fell, is the 6th year of Hezekiah, okay, and the 9th year of Hoshea, the last king of Israel. So now we have a link based on astronomy between the 6th year of Hezekiah and the BC date of 720 BC. Okay, so this is our astronomical link. All right, a little more detail here. So, the third eclipse is the same. Okay, the third eclipse was on, let's say the second eclipse was on March 8/9, the night of March 8/9 in the Julian calendar of 720 BC. Okay, in the second year of Merodach Baladan, that would be 720.T/719.T. Okay, and the third eclipse is in the same year on the night of September 1/2, 720 BC. Okay, so you can look those up in Stellarium if you want to calculate them, okay? Scripture tells us that Samaria was taken in the 6th year of Hezekiah. Okay, so that 6th year is the year 720.T/719.T, or 720 Tishri to 719 Tishri. Okay, so that was the 6th year of Hezekiah. Okay, and the overlap, between Sargon's second year and the 6th year of Hezekiah is between 720 Tishri and 719 N, or 719 Nisan, because that's when Sargon's second year ended. Okay, so that matches with Sargon's annals. Okay, so from this 720 BC date, with the 6th year of Hezekiah, we can bring the chronology down to the 14th, 15th, and 16th years of Hezekiah, which I mentioned at the beginning. And the Jubilee year is in 710 Tishri to 709 Tishri, okay? And the sabbatical year, which we determined from Daniel 9, was in 711 Tishri to 710 Tishri, okay? Using two Julian years to represent the agricultural year, which started in the 7th month, okay? That the sabbatical year periods follow. Okay, so we knew the sabbatical period years from Daniel 9 already, so we knew that the Jubilee had to go after a sabbatical year. Now, if we backing up 14 years and coming down 14 years, we see that there's only one sabbatical year that's very approximately close to the 14th year of Hezekiah, and which to place the sign that was to be given in 2 Kings 19:29, alluding to the Jubilee year. So that wraps up the astronomical background for this date. Okay, it's based on 3 eclipse dates given by Claudius Ptolemy in the 2nd century AD in the Almagest. And actually, there is no debate among scholars about the dates given in the Almagest, or the dates of the death of Shalmaneser and the accession of Sargon and Merodach Baladan. Nor is there any debate that he is referring to the capture of Samaria in his second year. Okay, but this has caused some confusion among Bible scholars because people have supposed that Shalmaneser took the city due to a mistranslation in some of the versions, where it says, I think the Septuagint says, he took it, meaning Shalmaneser, when actually the Hebrew says they took it. Okay, so the campaign was started by Shalmaneser V, but it was finished off later by Sargon after he secured his throne and took care of revolts and domestic troubles in Assyria, while in the meantime losing Babylon, the Babylonian throne, to Merodach Baladan. So it says they took it in Hebrew, and that explains the discrepancy here. So we don't have to see any problem when Sargon in his annals says that he took Samaria in his 2nd year. And this agrees with the astronomy. The astronomy secures the dates or confirms the dates, but there are other avenues in this case to confirm the dates. All right, so now I'm going to move on to our next date. Okay, and we'll see what that is here. Okay, so we're going to examine the astronomy establishing the date of our Nehemiah 1:1 text when it says in the 20th year. Okay, this would have been the year 446 Tishri to 445 Tishri. And the reason we know this is because in the next chapter in Nehemiah 2:1, it refers to the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, which would date from 445 Nisan to 444 Nisan. Okay, but in the Nehemiah 1:1 passage, the 9th month of the year, Kislev, is mentioned. Okay, which can only be in about the preceding year, namely bracketed in the year 446 Tishri to 445 Tishri. And this is the 20th year of the Jubilee cycle that we mentioned. Okay, so our astronomy here is to nail down the reign of Artaxerxes. Okay, to nail down when his 19th year was. All right, and for that, we have an astronomical tablet, just called a Venus Astronomical Tablet, and it's abbreviated as VAT, V-A-T. All right, so let's see what we've got here. Okay. Did I skip over that? Okay, I'll just have to explain it to you. All right, so I'll have to look it up in the Scroll of Biblical Chronology and Ancient Near Eastern History, Volume 1 here. I just want to be sure I get the tablet number right here. Okay. So the tablet in question is called Venus Astronomical Text 5047, okay? And this tablet is dated in the 11th year of Artaxerxes, king of Persia. Okay, and the observations on the tablet are, I'll just read this off to you here. Night of the 25th. Okay, I think astronomical data. 11th one, night of the 25th, a few clouds. Moon was balanced 1 cubit in front of Mars, okay? And these have definite astronomical interpretations, all of these terms. Night of the 26th, moon was behind Venus. The 28th, Mercury's last appearance in the east, in the end of Aquarius. Okay, balanced or near conjunction, I guess is what that means. Okay, and I have some dates for that in here. But there's no controversy among scholars that this tablet uniquely refers to the year 454 BC. So we would have to link up 454 BC with the 11th year of Artaxerxes. Okay, and then counting forward from there automatically makes the 19th year of Artaxerxes 446 Nisan to 445 Nisan. Okay, and as we know, the Kislev that's mentioned in Nehemiah 1:1 falls within this year. Okay, the 20th in the 20th year, meaning the 20th year of the Jubilee cycle, and of course the Jubilee cycle is calculated on a Tishri basis. So the Tishri year that contains this date is 446 dot lowercase t to 445 dot lowercase t. Okay, and so we can work out the Jubilee year from that. And I did that in my in the previous videos. I worked out the Jubilee from that. But what we're concentrating on here is that this date has a logical, astronomical linkage to when it is, okay, based on tablets that were dug up in ancient Mesopotamia and painstakingly deciphered by scholars who learned the Akkadian language and learned the astronomical terms and checked it with known dates and checked it against their knowledge of astronomy to be able to decipher the tablets and give us this knowledge this today, which whatever their personal opinions were, serves to confirm the scriptural dates and to help us to restore the scriptural chronology to a solid foundation. Okay, so we have put the book aside here. We have one more date to establish here, and that is I used the date of 593 BC in Nebuchadnezzar's in the 5th year of the exile of Jehoiakim as a basis for calculating the Jubilee of the 2nd year of Saul. All right, so just to review that for you, in Ezekiel chapter 1, we're told that in the 5th year of the exile of Jehoiakim, and it mentions in the 30th year, which would mean 30 years from Josiah's Reformation, and then in chapter 4, it mentions the sin of Israel was 390 years. Okay, so this is the rebellion of Israel against the tribe of Judah from Judah's perspective, which dates from the 1st year of Rehoboam and Jeroboam and goes all the way through to 593 BC. So what I did was I added up 593 plus the 390 years, came to 983, and then I added 40 years for Solomon, 40 years for David, and 40 years for Saul, and then I came back 2 years to the 2nd year of Saul, and we ended up in the 2nd year of Saul as 11, let's see, better check that out again. Yes, Jubilee of 1 Samuel 13, 1 through 3 would be 1102 dot Tishri to 1101 dot Tishri. Okay, so our starting point from that was 593 BC, and what I want to do here is I want to demonstrate the astronomical links and why we're certain about this date. Okay, so 593 BC is the date that we linked to the 5th year of Jehoiakim's exile, according to Ezekiel 1, chapter 1. Okay, so we can back up 5 years and we come to the year that Jehoiakim was exiled, and that would be the year 597 BC. All right, so now I have this tablet over here displayed on the screen, and it's called the Jerusalem Chronicle. This is one of those tablets that was dug up in the Middle East and deciphered. And what this tablet says, it's a Babylonian chronicle, And it says, in the 7th year of Nebuchadnezzar, on the 2nd day of the month of Adaru, this is when Nebuchadnezzar took the city of Yahud, or more particularly Jerusalem, okay, and he exiled its king. All right. So, of course, you can see it takes some very specialized skill to decipher a tablet like this. But it's pretty much universally accepted by scholars that this tablet refers to the conquest of Jerusalem and the exile of Jehoiakim. And more importantly, it says that it was done in the 7th year of Nebuchadnezzar. All right, so we have the link between the biblical chronology and the Babylonian timeline given in Babylonian terms. Okay, so now we want to establish astronomically when the reign of Nebuchadnezzar was. Okay, and for that, we have to see another tablet that was discovered, and on this tablet is written all right, and a frog in my throat. I think I'm going to get some water. All right, so maybe my voice won't crack up so much. Microphone back on. All right. What were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about the Babylonian tablet from the 37th year of Nebuchadnezzar. So I'll look up the catalog number for that in my chronology here. And that would be okay. Venus Astronomical Text 4956. Okay, and this is dated the 37th year of Nebuchadnezzar. And the observations on this tablet are very comprehensive and are sufficient to nail down Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year to 568 BC, okay? And these astronomical observations really can't be repeated for a very, very long time, certainly way outside any reasonable debate over Nebuchadnezzar, over a range of Nebuchadnezzar's years from a purely historical point of view, without reliance on astronomy. All right. Okay, so I'll give you a clue as to what the contents of this tablets are. Okay. The moon became visible behind the bull. That's a constellation name on that happened on April 22nd, 568. Saturn was in front of the swallow, and the westernmost fish of Pisces is the interpretation of that. And of course, we know that I think Saturn's period is moves through the constellations once every 27 years. Okay. The 11th or 12th, okay, and that would be of the month, 1-1. The 11th or 12th, Jupiter's acronical rising, that happened on 5-3, 568, or 5-4, 568. And Jupiter's period is it moves through one zone of the constellations, of the 12 constellations. I think its cycle is 12 years. Okay, so it moves through one constellation per year. Okay, and I think that's right. Where's the month? Okay, well, take that with a grain of salt, okay, because I don't remember all my astronomical knowledge that well. Okay, but it mentions Mercury, which had not set, yet visible. The third, okay, so you can actually take these instructions out here and calculate them out in Stellarium. There's positions mentioned for Mars and Mercury as well, and constellation, star names, Alpha Scorpii, lots of stuff here. Okay, so there is no doubt as from this tablet as to when the 37th year of Nebuchadnezzar was. It was in 568 BC. Okay, and of course, this makes the 37th year to be 568 dot N or Nissan to 567 dot N or Nissan. Okay, and we can just translate that right back up to find the 7th year of Nebuchadnezzar, and that would be 598 dot N to 597 dot N. And as I said in this other tablet, and here's a picture of it again, it tells us that it was the second day of Adar in the 7th year of the king, which means near the end of it. So since Nebuchadnezzar's 7th year ended on Nisan 1, Adar would be the immediately preceding month to the end of his 7th year, which would be in 597 BC. Okay, so additionally to this tablet nailing down Nebuchadnezzar's reign, we have, okay, and I have these observations linked up to the chronology also. Then that would be British Museum tablet 30 catalog number BM for British Museum 38462. Okay, and this gives a list of lunar eclipses and their date in the Babylonian calendar. In other words, of the whether it was the month of Nisan or Adaru or Ululu or Tishri. It gives the date of the eclipse, the day of the month, okay, and it gives eclipse observations for the 2nd, the 4th, the 5th, the 10th, and the 11th year of the same king. And the tablet probably gives, let me see what other information here I have in, this is my editorial volume right here, and I have the eclipses listed down here, pointing to the correct years. Okay, so British Museum 38462, year 2, 7th month, 14th day, lunar eclipse, which would be October 27, 603 BC, and then I have the Julian date for it here, like JD 1501477.29. So that would enable someone to just plug that number right into the time equation for stellarium and to be able to pull this eclipse up in Babylonia, okay? And likewise with the other eclipses. But the point is this enables us to determine with absolute certainty as to when Nebuchadnezzar's 7th year was, according to the Babylonian determination, and then according to this tablet that I showed you a photograph of, which is quite a famous tablet because it mentions the exile of King Jehoiakim. It dates to 597 BC and makes the 5th year of his exile 593 BC. So you can see that from the simple numbers of 390 years and then 340-year reigns, and then coming back to the 2nd year of Saul's reign, we end up on our Jubilee from 1 Samuel chapter 1 through chapter 1, verse 1 through 3. Okay, so now I want to make some comments about that text here. Okay, let's see here. And I covered some of this in the previous video here. Okay. So I've translated this from the Hebrew. Samuel states, Saul was the son of the year in his reigning. 2 years he has reigned over Israel. Now, there are quite a few translations that have footnotes or whatever. They totally misunderstand this text. Some scholars think this was a mistake or an error for Samuel to write this way. I believe that Samuel was the author of 1 Samuel because it gives a first-hand account of events which he passed on to the school of the prophets. okay, which finished up a book of 2 Samuel and wrote the books of the Kings. All right. So Samuel states, Saul was the son of the year in his reigning, and 2 years he has reigned over Israel. So that's a way of saying it was the 2nd year of his reign. Then Saul chose for himself 3,000 from Israel. Then 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and the mountains of Beit-el, and 1,000 had been with Jonathan, or Jehonatan, in Gibeah in Benjamin, and the rest of the people he had sent away, each one to his tent. Then Jonathan struck the garrison of the Philistines, which is in Geba, with great success, because he was inspired by the Spirit of the Most High to do it. Okay, then the Philistines heard. Okay, to remember at this time, Israel was under the thumb of the Philistines, who had basic control of the region, under the watchful eye of Egypt. Okay, then Saul blew on the shofar in all the land, saying, May the Hebrews hear. And all Israel heard. So, in Leviticus 25:9, it says, And ye shall blow the shofar in all your land. Okay, so our allusion here is in all your land, or the shofar in all your land. Okay, so the prophet has given a precise date in Saul's reign, which is actually quite unusual for the books of Samuel. In fact, I think maybe, are there any other precise dates? But they're rare enough that it's not done without a very specific reason, okay? Not because he gives regal years as a habit, okay? So it's very unusual to give a date. He gives only one date for a very special reason, and he incorporates into Saul's summoning all Israel to confront the Philistines the language of the Jubilee trumpet. Okay, the prophet cannot have been unaware of the connection, for he easily could have written the words differently and made the immediate point about Saul's summoning Israel without alluding to the Jubilee. But Israel was not unaware at that time when the Jubilee was. So what he has done is he has put pardon the pagan language here, but what do we call this? We call this when we find something in the movies, you call it of an allusion to some literature or allusion to something you already know about. You call it a what? You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Well, this is what's going on in this text here. Okay. So what the critic would call far-fetched, okay, becomes a certainty when all of the chronology is put together. As I said, there was already a Jubilee in my chronology before I discovered it, and the chronology was already there before me, as I showed you in a recent video. Okay, so the message of the prophet is this. Okay, so to give a little spiritual lesson here, okay, if you read 1 Samuel 13 in its entirety, okay, they were in the midst of war and distress, okay, as the world currently is. Okay, so we have this war in Ukraine, which doesn't seem to be going away, and we have signs of perpetual conflict everywhere, such as the world has never seen. I would say pretty much before the age of Christianity almost. It's like the devil has been given free rein to cause nations to make war on each other. Okay, so at this time though, when Saul was facing the threat of the Philistines, he had a problem with obeying the words of God, okay? And clearly those in Western government and leadership also have a problem with obeying even the most basic instructions of God about morality. So he has withdrawn his blessing because the sins of the people of the Western nations. And not to say that other nations of the world don't have sins also. But the age of taking for granted a Christian influence on the world is coming to an end, because that only happened because not because of Christian righteousness, but because God was preventing the powers below from taking control for the sake of spreading His word throughout all of the world. Okay, and so that time is coming to an end. So this is why it's imperative that you understand the Scripture. Alrighty, so as I was saying here, okay, in spite of the fact that Saul wasn't listening, okay, and in spite of the fact that our leaders aren't listening, and in spite of the fact that the shepherds who should shepherd the remnant of Israel aren't listening and paying attention to the details of Scripture, there's hope. Because nevertheless, hidden in plain sight in the text of 1 Samuel 13, 1 through 3, is an allusion to the Jubilee. Okay, a reminder of the promise of Jubilee and the promise of end-time redemption. Okay, and remember that Scripture, all things are in parables, figures, and symbols. Okay, and so you have to learn the language of Scripture in order to understand the message, and you have to be spiritually in tune to it and obeying God and keeping His commandments to understand these things. Scripture is not a textbook for just anyone and everyone to read all of its secrets. You have to be following God to be able to discern that. Okay, and God is looking, it says in the passage here, just to make a connection here, and all Israel heard, and may all Israel hear, because God is looking for men and women after His own heart to hear. And we realize that He found a man after His own heart in King David, but He is also looking for men and women after His own heart among the remnant of Israel. All right, so thank you for listening. This is Daniel Gregg, over and out.